Now, as we get into the Super Nintendo Entertainment System brochures, this is the part of my collection that I've had since I was a kid. These brochures I actually got from stores and brought home myself. So this is the very first one for the launch of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in North America in 1991. And we got on the front here the logo, the two brand new controllers, and Nintendo's most advanced entertainment system, because at that time it most certainly was. You open it up here, it says Take Control, Super Graphics, Super Sound, Super Control, Super Mario World, and Super being the operative word. And I remember I got this brochure long before the system was released, and I would just sit here looking at it, looking to see what the hardware was going to look like, and I was a little worried about the cross key, because to me it looked a lot like the select and start buttons, and I was afraid it was going to be rubber like those were. But luckily it turned out to be hard plastic. I was also very curious as to how that big eject button was going to work. And something that I noticed afterwards, kind of a little nerd tidbit, is this prototype seems to have the Nintendo logo just as the final product does, but here it's more of a raised plastic versus an engraved design that was actually done on the final product. But you open it up, got Super Games, Super Action, Super Adventure, Super Challenge. Got a lot of the games here. Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, Super Play Action Football, Sim City, Super Tennis, Pilot Wings, Super Mario World, and F-Zero. And of course, Super Mario World is denoted as being included with every Super NES, but a lot of the other games you'll notice are denoted as being coming soon. Because when the Super NES released, it didn't have too many first-party launch titles. I believe all you had was Super Mario World, which was the pack-in game, F-Zero, and Pilot Wings. But more great games certainly were on the way very soon. And the only other thing kind of featured on this part is the Super Nintendo Entertainment System cleaning kit. And then on the back, you just got your Nintendo Power info, as well as the Nintendo Seal of Quality. The next brochure, very similar in design, but looking a little bit more modern, would come out the next year in 1992. Got more of a detailed Super Nintendo logo. Nintendo's most advanced video game system. Kept that on there. Except it's a video game system now, not an entertainment system. And then we got that cool picture of the system. Open this one up. Got a picture of the controller. Bowser, Link, Captain Falcon's machine. Its name escapes me right now. But anyway, the Super Set that includes Super Mario World and two controllers. Wasn't originally called the Super Set. My launch version doesn't say Super Set here. It's just, there's nothing there. That's just all you got. But of course, later on, they made it available with different games and with no game at all. So they had to differentiate the names of the sets, just like they did with the NES. Let you open it up here. Got kind of a cool blue background. Super NES Super Set, Super NES Control Set. It's the one where you got the Super Mario World and two controllers, and then the control set was the one with no game. Talking about the Mario Paint game released with a mouse that would come out later that year, and then of course the Super Scope that came packaged with these 6 games in one. So that's the front. You see the front panel like we did, and the back, talking about both the Super NES, the NES, and the Game Boy. And then this one's got a little bit different of a design. You open it up to see Super Games. Got a lot of the great games that would come out early on in the system's life. Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, F-Zero, Super Tennis, Super Soccer, Battle Clash for the Super Scope, and several other games as well. But with a big feature for Mario Paint down in that lavender color band at the bottom there. I talked about in the Game Boy brochures where there seemed to be kind of a progression, kind of an edit going along. There were modifications and additions made. This next brochure, released in, I believe it was 1993, Has a similar thing going on here. It's almost the same front panel except for new Super FX. And this being 1993, that's for none other than Star Fox that would be released later that year. So let's take a look at that one. Open it up, talking about Super Systems and accessories. Still got the Super Set, the Control Set, Mario Paint, which was never packaged with the system, but did come in a big box, and then of course the Super Scope. Talking about each one, the Super Set, Control Set, Mario Paint, and the Super Scope. Super FX, a lot of text. The future is now. You won't believe the arcade quality, control, and realism that the Super FX technology brings to Super NES games. Thanks to Nintendo's exclusive Super FX chip, you'll be standing on a new stage in the evolution of video game action. Super FX means true-to-life perspectives, fast and fluid motion, and depth that will put you at the absolute center of the action. And you can experience it without add-ons or accessories, because the Super FX technology is built right into the game pack. Only Nintendo has it, and only the Super NES has the power to make it happen. So, 2 whole panels dedicated to the Super FX chip. All text. And you open it up here, you got a similar type of montage as the other brochure. Got Super Games and some box art shots along the top here. And of course, first and foremost is Star Fox, featuring the Super FX chip, and then other newer games that came out around that time, such as Vegas Stakes and Super Play Action Football. Also talking about the Nintendo Power Super Power Club, which is where you could trade in these stamps that you got in your magazine, similar to Club Nintendo, and trade them in partially or in full for rewards. It's members of the Super Power Club, which is basically just another name for you have a subscription to Nintendo Power. Occasionally they would give you coupons for a certain amount off of game packs. And then of course there were the collectible cards that were included in the issues for a while. And you fold it up, and the back is very similar to the other brochures we've seen. Super NES, NES, and Game Boy, along with the official Nintendo seal of quality. The next couple Super NES brochures are a little bit different. You can see it says issue number 1 and issue number 2 here. They adopted the Best Play Here slogan for their commercials, and then later Play It Loud, neither of which really took on. They were trying to follow in the same vein as Sega, coming up with clever marketing slogans, but Nintendo's never really caught on. So it says the Best Play Here. Not mediocre, the elite, supreme, top of the heap, most excellent, jammin', poppin', primo, to the extremo. Talk about 90s. Experience, have fun, recreation, escape, goof around, don't take too seriously. Hey, it's just a game, relax, chill out. This place, right now, nowhere else, but exactly in this spot at this exact moment. So if that doesn't scream 1993 when this came out, I don't know what does. Don't know how to plug in your Super NES? Well, here's all the technical information and stuff that you can get if you call their help number. Can't get past the big Koopa? Well, there's your one-on-one help hotline. And then, of course, the seal of quality. But you open up this jammin' brochure, and it says it starts with the thumbs. They're what separate the good players from those who should stay home ironing socks and try not to steer an R-Wing fighter through the Lilat system. Pretty bold here. After all, this is Super NES. Thank you very much. The best play here, remember. So you got to have good thumbs, and you got to know how to use them. This is hilarious. Oh, and we took this seriously when we were 13 years old. So talking about the Super Set, the Control Set, the Super Scope 6, the Super Scope by itself, Mario Paint, and then of course the Control Set. It says whether you're flying, racing, or slam dunking, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System makes it one awesome experience. Featuring a palette of over 32,000 colors versus 512 for the other guy, Sega Genesis. Digital stereo sound and gameplay innovation like Mode 7 and the Super FX chip a Super NES exclusive. And with nearly 300 games to choose from, no wonder this is where the action is. So quite a bit in attitude there, trying to take a note from Sega's page. We open it up, you got kind of an eye in the middle, the best play here. This is actually pretty cool, the way that they laid this out with all the little circles radiating out from the big eye, talking about games like Street Fighter II Turbo, Super Mario All-Stars, Super Mario Kart. Let's see if I can, where does this start? Let's try it this way. I'm going to be reading along the perimeter here. It's not whether, oh, I see how it goes. It's not whether you win or lose, this is just the corners. It's the games you play. And then on the sides, this is where the thumbs are put to the test. So how good are yours? Look, there's some wild, wacky stuff going on down here. So get those thumbs up. Nova bombs are going off everywhere, and there's some wreaking serious havoc with turnips. Man, what's going on here? There's only one way to find out. Keep working those thumbs. So it's all about the thumbs. It starts with the thumbs. So that's the best play here, number one. As you can see, this only went for 2 issues here before they stop with this whole trying to copy Sega with their catchy, attitude-ridden marketing slogans. But this is issue number 2, released in 1994. Trying Play It Loud is their slogan. And that's gross. This is the first time I'm noticing this. I have no idea what the background for the "it" is. It looks kind of like meatloaf or something. But yeah, Play It Loud. What do we got? Shake things up. Melt your tires. Burn all your socks. Stop doing things halfway. Act like an ape. Never hit the pause button. Play it loud. Ah, boy. So we open it up. Just as much attitude here. Super NES control set. Mario Paint. Super Scope. Super Game Boy adapter. And then the Super Power Club for Nintendo Power. Now this is where they really started to get at Genesis here. Look, a chart. Super NES versus Sega Genesis. Comparing colors on the screen, Mode 7, sprites, root beers, and memory. So, colors. 32,768 for Super Nintendo. Sega, 512. What? More colors mean more exciting game graphics. Colors on screen, 256 for Super Nintendo, 64, for Sega, and then again, more colors mean more exciting game graphics. Mode 7, yeah buddy, Negatory Earthbird, this makes weird groovy 3D-ish visual effects, so trying to take Sega down a couple. Sprites, 128 for Super NES, 80 for Genesis. Sprites are moving objects that make games more whoa. Oh, the guy who wrote this, or the girl. Could have been a girl who wrote this. Root beers. Neither of them have root beers. Neither has root beers. Memory, lots. Half as much for Genesis. The larger the memory, the more complex, wacky styling the games can be. And beware of anyone, gee, we wonder who, trying to sell you an expensive 32-bit adapter. Since we've already built more exciting technology right into our 16-bit games, check out Donkey Kong Country and Uniracers, thus saving you tons of money, dinero. Please hold your applause till the end of this brochure. Oh, wow. What they're not mentioning here is that the Genesis actually does have a faster processor, which eliminates the slowdown problems that the Super NES had in a lot of games. But Nintendo was right. The Super NES did best the Genesis in a lot of the technical specs that it had. But this is just tantamount of the animosity and the early to mid-90s grunge attitude that was going on during this console war. It really was to be experienced firsthand to understand it. But anyway, we open it up. Yeah, this is pretty early to mid 90s. Donkey Kong Country, Super Metroid, Tetris 2, Wario's Woods, Illusion of Gaia, Mortal Kombat 2, Shaq Fu, Super Punch-Out, NBA Jam, Super Street Fighter 2, Tin Star, Earthworm Jim, which actually was better on Genesis, Stunt Race FX, Uniracers, Power Rangers, Batman and Robin. So a really cool early to mid-90s grunge theme here. And of course, all the attitude to combat the Sega Genesis. And then on the back, any more wisecracks? Played your Super NES a little too loud? Here's how to fix it. Can't get past the mother brain? Here's our helpline. Look for our quality seal. It's loud. Yeah, the official Nintendo seal of quality. So next up, we're going to be taking a look at kind of a combination of brochures called the Power of Choice. Now, the Power of Choice brochures aren't system specific. At this point, probably from 1992 to 1994, 1995, Nintendo was trying to capitalize on the fact that they had three systems going at the same time. They had the NES, the Game Boy, and the Super NES. And the NES was still going strong, especially in Japan. So they didn't really want to just pull the plug on it just because its successor, the Super NES, came out. So what they did is they marketed each of their three systems to a different group. They marketed the NES as kind of an entry-level system for the younger player. They marketed the Super NES for the older adolescent kid with attitude who wanted the more advanced graphics and sound and more complex gameplay. And they were marketing the Game Boy for both kids and for adults. Kids, of course, for all of the fun games and the portable aspect. Adults for the portable aspect as well, and kind of the more brain games, such as Tetris, that they could use while they were on the train, during their commute, or during downtimes in the office. So they were trying to market each of their three products appropriately. And that's what these Power of Choice brochures were to do. They were to explain for whom each one was intended. So this first Power of Choice brochure was from 1991, right along about the time when the Super NES was released. The Power of Choice is yours with Nintendo. And then we've got the business exec with his Game Boy. We've got the very early 90s kids with their Nintendo Power. And then we've got the parents walking out because they made the correct choice, probably because of this brochure. They were actually able to buy the correct system here. So the Power of Choice is yours with Nintendo. It's yours with three great systems. They have a glossary here defining terms such as 8-bit and 16-bit so you understand the difference. CPU, controllers, game pack, hardware, PPU, software, scrolling, etc. So this is basically like an educational brochure for parents when they were faced with the decision, oh my gosh, there's three Nintendo systems. Which one is right for us or for our kids? So that's what this brochure was designed to do. And it talks about the NES and its game library and capabilities, the Game Boy, and of course the Super NES. Very text heavy. But a lot of common questions it addresses. Reading from here, it says, what are the differences between the NES and the Super NES? Can I connect both the NES and the Super NES to the same TV? Will I be able to play my NES game packs on the Super NES? What about sound and graphics? With such popular characters, will the same games be available on all systems? What accounts for the popularity of Nintendo characters and games? What does Game Boy offer? Why doesn't Game Boy have a color screen? What about new software for Game Boy? Before I buy any system, what's the most important thing to know? So, kind of an educational lesson, courtesy of Nintendo and their Player's Choice brochure. And there were a couple of these throughout the years. This one, like I said, was from 1991. This next one's from 1992, and it kind of takes on the aesthetic of the Super NES brochures. Nintendo gives you the Power of Choice with three great video game systems and hundreds of great games. So you get to see all three systems here, Super NES, Game Boy, and NES. Not quite as text heavy. There's still a lot of text, but not nearly as much as the first one. Questions such as what's the difference between the NES and the Super NES, sound and graphics, characters, backwards compatibility, all of those same issues are still addressed, and each of the three systems again is kind of showcased in its own little section here. And then of course you've got the overview of the three systems and the Nintendo seal of quality. This next one changes up format a little bit. It was released in 1993. It says pick the Nintendo system that's right for you. Again, Super NES, Game Boy, and Nintendo Entertainment System. Power of choice. Super NES, Game Boy, and now the redesigned NES, the top loader. At this point, that one was released. It says the Classic. An almost limitless selection of game titles makes this the perfect starter system and the standard for family entertainment. So this was after they had re-released it. Again, the Super NES, Game Boy, and NES are each featured in their own little section. And we've got the specs for fun, talking about accessories for each one, and technical specs. As far as the NES goes, they're really kind of capitalizing on how economical it is. A great value, system is compact, affordable, and very powerful. A world of accessories gets everyone in on the fun. Then we open it up. And kind of a little stream of games going from Super NES, 250, to Game Boy, 300, all the way down to NES with over 600 games available. So kind of a cool way that they did that with that little montage of screenshots there. Then the last Power of Choice brochure came out in 1995. Again, still showcasing the Super Nintendo, the NES, and the Game Boy. We got Full Gore with his Super NES controller, and Diddy Kong with his red Play It Loud Game Boy. Looks like NES doesn't get graphical representation on the cover. The hottest new hits. No new system required. Got Yoshi's Island, Killer Instinct, and Donkey Kong Country 2. It's your money. Don't blow it. Use it for new titles that are fully loaded. ACM, which is Advanced Computer Modeling. ACM graphics, huge action, small price. Not like some $400 system with a two-title lineup. So this was 1995, probably taking aim at the Sega Saturn there, possibly the PlayStation. Because these deliver. Super NES, Super Game Boy, kind of capitalizing on the Super Game Boy of it, and the Game Boy itself. Oh, and that would be why the NES doesn't have any representation on the cover. They're only talking about Game Boy and Super Nintendo at this point. Because by 1995, the NES had ceased production in the United States. So there's only one way to see Game Boy games for what they really are. Full-color extravaganzas. Super Game Boy brings another 400 hits to the big screen with your Super NES at a really, really small price. So pick your colors, pick your borders, then pick your fights. So instead of the NES, we're talking about the Super Game Boy, playing Game Boy games on the Super NES. And the montage of screenshots on the back featuring Donkey Kong Country, Earthbound, Illusion of Gaia, Donkey Kong Country 2, Yoshi's Island, Killer Instinct, all fantastic titles. Try and beat this. Then for Game Boy, we have Killer Instinct, Street Fighter, Donkey Kong Land, Kirby's Dream Land 2, and a bunch of other third-party games. So this last Power of Choice only talks about the Super NES and the Game Boy, and the ability to play Game Boy games on the Super NES. Because by this time, 1995, there were definitely rumblings of Nintendo's new system coming out, the Nintendo 64. But not before something else. Oh, the Virtual Boy. I guess it's fitting that a system that was out hardly a year gets only one brochure. But nevertheless, Nintendo did put one out, and as a lot of people know, the Virtual Boy was kind of a stopgap product. Because the N64 was delayed so much, Nintendo thought it had to get a product out there to kind of fill that gap. And the Virtual Boy was it. And we all know now what a big mistake that was. But in an effort to try to market the system, it said it came from a new dimension, a third dimension, a good dimension. That's all debatable. For a moment, I became distracted. Then, as though magnetically attracted, the invention reacted, pulling me into the third dimension. Again, all very mid-90s grunge. Open it up. Was this their intention? To crash my dimension? Talking about 3D graphics, sound, wraparound viewer, individual adjustability, 32-bit processing, advanced double grip controller, speed 20 megahertz, 2 high-resolution displays, 3D technology at an affordable price, portability. So that was the Virtual Boy. It's interesting. The wraparound viewer, the individual adjustability, those are things that were necessary to make it so you could see the graphics. They aren't necessarily features, but I guess they had to scrape together any good thing they could say about the Virtual Boy. Open it up, and this probably has just about every game for the Virtual Boy. Mario Clash, Waterworld, Wario Cruise. Interesting. That must have been renamed because Wario Cruise was not the final name. Red Alarm, Teleroboxer, Virtual League Baseball, Galactic Pinball, GoldenEye. Well, we never got GoldenEye. If you thought rush hour traffic was a nightmare, wait till you get behind the wheel of 007's car. So yeah, that game never came out. Jack Brothers, the rarest game on Virtual Boy. That one's here. Mario's Tennis. Yeah, that's about it. There may be some that are missing, but for sure Wario Cruise got renamed and GoldenEye never came out. You take a look at the back here. Does your Virtual Boy system need a little me time? That's if it breaks. That's for customer service. Tired of losing to your little sister? Game hints. Look for our quality seal. His name is Sparky. It's a seal. Know what I find interesting? They talk about the quality seal, but I don't see it anywhere in this brochure. Funny how they don't put the seal of quality on the Virtual Boy brochure. Actions speak louder than words, don't they?